Berserk, ladies and gentlemen, is one of those few shows in anime that screams heavy metal. Everything from its dark visuals, haunting atmosphere, nihilistic themes, complex characters, and epic music literally encompasses many aspects of the kind of theatrical elements one finds within the metal genre. Monsters, demons, elves, Lovecraftian horrors, Kentaro Miura's dark fantasy world has got it all. I'm AnimetalViking, and today I would like to welcome you all to the first episode of Let's Construct a Concept Album, a new series where I pitch my ideal concept album themed around an anime, book, video game, you name it, and you guys get to discuss your ideas with me on whatever platform you follow me on. Roll the intro! The album would have to be done in a very dark and extreme style of metal, with perhaps some subtle elements of a genre like power metal to reflect the more calm, tranquil, beautiful, triumphant, and even hopeful moments that can be found within this bleak and desolate fantasy world. Obviously, the story of Berserk is one that is still ongoing, which means that this kind of project would have more people involved and probably added on as time goes by. However, for now, I think for the sake of time and being realistic with a project of this kind, I think the concept of the story should focus on the Golden Age arc, which yes, I know has been done a billion times before. However, it can go on till I'd say the end of the Black Swordsman arc, possibly even the end of the Lost Children arc, because this would leave a nice cliffhanger of sorts that would leave non-anime and manga fans wanting to find out more about the story, while having a satisfying conclusion to it from a musical sense, should a project like this never be revived again due to the actual main body of work and discography that these bands and artists produce. So in terms of overall style and sound, I think the dark, haunting and gothic sound of the symphonic death metal band Septic Flesh would be perfect for a Berserk concept album. The band are able to blend the heaviness and raw brutality of death metal, while their orchestral elements, which are heavily inspired by composers like Wagner and Brahms, add the feeling of supernatural horror and cosmic horror, and it matches Berserk's aesthetic perfectly, literally down to a T. If there's one thing I would add to their sound for this specific concept album is maybe some more subtle keyboard elements and maybe some darker Gregorian chant choral elements to actually give the more haunting and gothic feel of the music that much more of a kick, more of a punch to it, and to really sell the tone of Berserk's story. Also, I mean, Septic Flesh, they have always worked with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra since 2008's Communion. So, in having one of the most prolific and renowned orchestras at the helm, it's a surefire guarantee to craft one hell of a bombastic and epic album worthy of Miura's masterpiece of a dark fantasy. However, as we all know, Berserk's story isn't just Guts wandering around Midland hunting down demons and monsters. There is, of course, the matter of the Golden Age arc, which is, while supernatural elements were hinted here and there within certain moments of the story, the majority of it was very much focused on medieval politics and medieval combat. This is where the more power metal elements come into play. So while Septic Flesh's typical songwriting would be great for depicting any moment of the story that follows after the events of the eclipse, the Golden Age will have to have that perfect balance of power metal and death metal. So it can create this atmosphere that is dark and sinister, but can still feel triumphant and full of upbeat energy, which you'd get as from having come back from a very bloody battle, and you are being welcomed back as heroes and champions as you return. This means that the power metal riffs will have to be played using the death metal guitar tuning, and the grand orchestral and choral elements will have to be incorporated along with the sound so that they can flow and transition between light sounding and dark sounding music. In terms of vocalists that I would choose to make up this band and project, I have more than one, since these vocalists will need to either represent specific characters or be able to convey the mood of specific story moments using their respective vocal talents. So here are my picks and why. Firstly, we have Spiros Seth Antonio. Of course, you can't have the Septic Flesh sound without his vocals. I mean, his growls, they are not only deep and beastly, but despite his Greek accent, he is actually able to give the lyrics in the songs that he performs very clear pronunciation, unlike most death metal vocalists. He also paces himself in his delivery instead of trying to have his vocals match the speed of the music, and he has a very commanding narration style to his delivery. Spiros would be perfect as the main vocal narrator for the music. He could be viewed as the idea of evil, or even Zod the Immortal narrating the entire story of Berserk, while the other vocalists that I have chosen can play other characters in the cast. Spiros' vocals, accompanied with the trademark Septic Flesh sound, are absolutely inseparable, and it wouldn't be the same without him. So Spiros' vocals are perfect for being the main focus, and they bring out the dark and nihilistic nature of Berserk's story and the universe, the dark, brutal nature of it. Another vocalist I'd pick would have to be Shagrath of Gimuborgir, because Shagrath's vocals are perfect for depicting or playing the role of any of the demons and monsters that inhabit the world of Berserk. I would have him do the parts for all the male members of the God Hand, with the exception of Griffith, of course. For Griffith, I have someone else who's more suited for that role. Anyways, Shagrath's black metal vocals and his epic narration voice would just fit any and all lines from a character like Void, and would actually add a bit of variety to the harsh vocals, considering the fact that Spiros' vocals are typically only growls and he never actually does any screams. Also, having Shagrath would add a lot more layers and depth to the harsh vocals that would perfectly capture Berserk's dark tone and make it feel like there's more than one kind of monster or demon that inhabits the world, and it will also add a more theatric element from a vocal perspective, instead of just the raw brutality. Another vocalist I'd add is Helge Stan. I think that's how you say his name. I apologize if I butchered that. He is the original vocalist for the folk metal band Equilibrium, one of my favorite bands of all time. I would have him play the role of Guts for this story. Why? Because, I mean, the guy's black metal screams are by far the best I have ever heard from anyone in the genre, in my opinion. And he is able to convey a variety of emotions within his style. I mean, just listen to the mid-section of Blut Auge to get a sense of what I'm talking about. I mean, do you hear that? Do you hear that? The scream is a pure mix of sadness, grief, and pure, unfiltered rage. This matches Guts' personality perfectly down to a fucking T. these crisp vocals that are able to cut through with raw emotional precision is exactly what is needed to do Guts' character justice. Plus, it would make a great balancing out between Shagrath's more demonic style of black metal vocals, and not only that, but this guy can growl as well, so you can think of these growls as perhaps the more underlying elements of the beast in black that is taking hold of Guts as the story goes on. Alright, so another vocalist that I would pick for this project is Joachim Broden of Sabaton. I hope I'm not butchering your name there. And yes, you heard right, Joachim Broden of Sabaton. He would be a great choice for this project when it comes to being like a secondary narrator. Plus his ability to write bombastic metal anthems that can be used as battle songs, especially considering the lyrical themes of Sabaton's music. It would add a lot of depth and dimension to the tracks, meant to reflect the glory days of the Golden Age arc, before the events of the Eclipse begin to set into motion. As for his vocals, his clean and very deep baritone, almost operatic style would set the tone for all the victories of the Band of the Hawk in the beginning part of the story. I would even say that he could continue on adding a vocal contribution to the near end of the album, as the song The Ballad of Bull from Sabaton's 2014 album Heroes proves that Joachim is capable of doing vocals that are of a more somber and melancholic tone. Obviously, I wouldn't include his vocals in, say, the final tracks where the Eclipse and the Black Swordsman arcs begin, but I think he would be a great contributor for the majority of the record. And plus, since he's part of a power metal band, his style of power metal vocals wouldn't sound out of place in comparison to your typical power metal vocalist. Another vocalist I'd get is, I'm not even going to pronounce his surname, I do not know how to speak Polish, Peter from Vader. If I did want any vocalist to perhaps play the role of Zod the Immortal, if I didn't want Zod to be the narrator and I wanted Spiros to remain as the idea of evil or something to that degree, then Peter of Vader would have to be my ideal vocalist to play the role of Zod the Immortal. I mean, his vocals sound like the perfect mix of a creature that is part man, part beast, and this fits the description of Zod and just his overall appearance. It fits perfectly. I mean, his vocal style also sounds like that of a battle-hardened warrior as well, so I would even consider him playing the role of Guts if I wouldn't be able to get Helga Stan to fulfill that role. I mean, you just need to listen to Vader's cover of Slayer's Reign in Blood or Sword of the Witcher from the first Witcher game and you'll get a sense of what I mean. Another vocalist who I'd pick is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name, this is Norwegian I'm assuming, based on my research, Agnete. You might recognize her as the vocalist of Gjørv. At least that's how I think you say it. Gjørv. And she is also the singer of the song Get Jinxed from the video game League of Legends. She was also the female singer in the Dimmu Borgir song Gateways from their 2010 album Abradahadra. Her unique brand of vocals would be perfect for a female villain, and I personally think she would do great in the role of Slan, who is the only female member of the God Hand. And I mean, if you've heard her work on Gateways and have seen the anime or read the manga, then I shouldn't have to explain any further why she would be perfect for the role of Slan. Enough said. Another vocalist I'd get is Roy Khan. Roy Khan is the original vocalist of Camelot. He would be my ideal choice for the role of Griffith. If you've listened to any of Camelot's older material with him at the helm, his voice carries many layers to it, just like Griffith's personality. He's got Griffith's charismatic and underlying dark persona. It would be reflected so well in Khan's ability to make his silky smooth voice sound either angelic and beautiful or dark and mysterious. I mean, just listen to tracks like March of Mephisto and Memento Mori if you want to get a grasp of what I mean. Plus, being a classically trained singer and songwriter, he would be a great asset in collaborating with both Christos Antonio from Septic Flesh and Joachim of Sabaton, and he would be key into balancing both the dark elements of the music and the lighter elements that can reflect both the nihilistic despair of Berserk's universe, but also the more beautiful and triumphant elements as I was talking about earlier. The final vocalist that I would pick for this project would have to be Chloe Angyu, at least I think that's how you say her name. Most of you out there who are metalheads, you might be very unfamiliar with this lovely lady and amazing singer. She was a member of the original lineup of the Celtic pop group Celtic Women, and my god does she have the voice of an angel. Her solo performance of Nella Fantasia is one of my all-time favorite works of hers, and her soft yet gentle voice would match the character of Casca perfectly. Why? Well, despite her tough and impulsive exterior, Casca is very much a kind and gentle soul who cares for the men she commands and the two men in her life, which are Griffith and Guts. Chloe's beautiful voice would serve as a breakup from all the sad and serious moments and she would help remind the listener that despite the odds, there is still an element of hope and redemption in Guts' tale. So yeah, that's it for the vocalists. Then of course you cannot have a great concept album without an album artwork that perfectly reflects and captures the music and the story. So while Spiros is a capable artist, his usual style of work is far too surrealist for a story like Berserk. So I would have the album art done by someone like, say, Gozen, who some of you might have seen his work before. He did this amazing fan art of Griffith's visitation to Princess Charlotte, and it's done in a very romantic art period style. He also did this superb rendition of the Eclipse, which looks like something Michelangelo would have painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. I have no doubt that Gozen would be able to render an amazing album cover that accurately reflects Berserk and the music being used to tell the story. Another awesome artist I would use would be someone like either Michael CTY or W. Locke. At least that's how I think you say Locke. W. Locke. I don't know. Whose styles are a perfect mix between realism and anime, kind of like Final Fantasy almost. So it's perfect. And obviously they would have to do art pieces for the booklets that reflect the individual songs on the CDs. So yeah, that would also be a great thing to have a look at as well. The lyrics will have to be, they absolutely must be written by Sotaris Vayenas, who is the clean vocalist, rhythm guitarist, and lyricist for Septic Flesh. As I explained in my video, Septic Flesh, the Masters of Extreme Symphonic Music, Sotaris is a man who knows how to write lyrics that are not only poetic, but are thought-provoking as well. He works extremely close with Spiros when it comes to mapping out the concepts and what the lyrics are making reference to. Sotaris and Spiros would do a fantastic job in linking the lyrics to the themes and philosophies of Berserk. These things typically being man's struggle against fate, destiny, and causality, the apocalypse, and of course the blend of supernatural and cosmic horror. Not only will Satoru's lyrics make it reflect Berserk's story, but just like with all of Septic Flesh's music, he will find some way to make it link with actual history and mythology and provoke the feeling of fear that perhaps the events of Berserk were real and actually happened, and possibly still happening to this very day, just like he did with songs like Lovecraft's Death, or something to that degree. So yeah, Satoru's Vainas definitely has to write the lyrics. And then finally, the hidden bonus track would have to be a cover of Forces. I mean, how the hell can you have one of the world's greatest orchestras and choirs at your command and not cover Susumu Hirasawa's masterpiece Anthem for Berserk? How can you not? For this cover, I would leave out any and all of the growling vocalists, and rather have either Joachim Broden or Roy Khan do the main singing for the verses, and let the choir go full blast with the chorus. Of course, the metal instruments can still be utilized. However, I would record maybe an orchestral version as well, so that fans of classical music will be able to enjoy it as well. And while it would be awesome for the original version of Forces to be covered, I get the feeling that the God Hand mix of the song would be a far better version for a cover, especially since that particular mix uses a lot more choral elements than the original. And that concludes this first episode of Let's Build a Concept Album. What are your ideas? Please let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know on my various social media platforms, whichever of them you follow me on. I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas, and until the next episode, take care of yourselves, and as always, have a kick-ass day. Cheers.